From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana, Siddiqui. First, the headlines. House Democrats pass bill to combat Islamophobia in support of Ilhan Omar. CAIR Ohio fires executive director for allegedly spying for hate group. God will take revenge, says Afghan father of U.S. drone strike victim. Washington, D.C. sues Proud Boys and Oath Keepers over Capitol riot. Turkish police nab a suspect smuggling King Solomon's artifacts. French soldiers a lower flag after years in Mali's Timbuktu. Our top story tonight. On Tuesday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed legislation creating a special office within the State Department to combat Islamophobia globally. Lawmakers passed the bill along party lines 219 to 212. In a House floor speech, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who authored the bill, pointed to a global trend of anti-Muslim sentiment. She said that includes the Chinese government's abuses against Uyghurs. The debate on the legislation was not without drama. Democrats objected to remarks from Pennsylvania Republican Scott Perry. He accused Omar of being anti-Semitic and affiliated with terrorist organizations. House proceedings were halted for over an hour as lawmakers awaited a decision on Perry's remarks. These were ultimately ruled a violation of chamber regulations prohibiting personal attacks during floor debate. A special in-depth analysis segment is coming up later tonight in our show, so keep watching Muslim News. A chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, has fired its executive director for allegedly spying on behalf of a hate group. The board of CAIR Ohio, Columbus, Cincinnati fired Romina Iqbal, its executive and legal director. This was after learning he committed ethical and professional violations. Iqbal was working for the Investigative Project on Terrorism, founded by far-right extremist Stephen Emerson. The Southern Poverty Law Center described him as an anti-Muslim activist. Last week, CAIR's national headquarters informed the Ohio chapter that a forensic investigation conducted by an independent third-party expert found conclusive evidence of Iqbal's spying. Iqbal spent years secretly recording CAIR network meetings and passing confidential information about its national advocacy work to this anti-Muslim hate group. The expert verified Iqbal did not receive help from any other CAIR employee. When confronted with the evidence, Iqbal admitted he had been working with the anti-Muslim hate organization. On Monday, the Pentagon said 4 armed ISIS fighters were killed in an overnight raid in Syria's eastern Deir ez-Zawri province. Pentagon spokesperson Commander Jessica McNulty told Al Monitor the partnered operation resulted in no detentions and the death of 4 armed Daesh fighters. She noted that one of the fighters was wearing a suicide vest, which was destroyed by coalition forces. She also said the raid targeted known ISIS militants who attacked a Syrian Democratic Forces checkpoint on December 10th. Meanwhile, Syria's state-run news agency claims 3 civilians were killed in an operation and that U.S. forces had kidnapped a number of the locals. Washington, D.C. officials have filed a lawsuit against 2 right-wing extremist groups for their role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol by supporters of former President Donald Trump. Attorney General Karl Racine said the lawsuit accuses the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and more than 30 people associated with the groups of conspiring to terrorize the District of Columbia.
We're bringing this lawsuit pursuant to local and federal laws, including the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. A Reconstruction-era federal law designed to protect our country against violent conspiracies, protect our citizens against violent conspiracies, like the attack that took place on January 6th. Our intent, as we indicated, is to hold these violent mobsters and these violent hate groups accountable and to get every penny of damage that we can. Let me tell you, if it so happens that we bankrupt them, then that's a good day. When hate is dispatched and eliminated, that's a good day.
31 members of the group were singled out in the lawsuit, including several leaders. Most of them already face federal charges related to conspiracy, obstruction, and assault for the January 6th attack. Early Wednesday morning, the U.S. House followed the Senate by voting to increase the national debt ceiling. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen had given lawmakers until Wednesday to increase the nation's borrowing limit and keep the government solvent. The bill is now with President Joe Biden, who is expected to sign it, bringing an end to months of doubt over a potential government default. The U.S. Air Force dismissed 27 service members for not obeying orders to get vaccinated against COVID-19, a spokeswoman said Monday. They are the U.S. military's first dismissals of personnel for refusing the shots. More than 94% of Air Force personnel are fully vaccinated, according to the service's data. Yet tens of thousands of active duty members across military services have declined the vaccines. Many of them have sought exemptions that are rarely given. On Tuesday, an Afghan whose daughter was among 10 relatives killed by a U.S. drone strike expressed anger at Washington's decision to not punish anyone. Ayman al-Ahmadi, who lost his 3-year-old daughter Malika and 9 other relatives in the August 29 strike, said God will take revenge. The strike happened amid the U.S. military scrambling to complete its withdrawal from Afghanistan. On Monday, the Pentagon said no U.S. service member would face disciplinary action for an honest mistake. The U.S. military wrongly identified the Ahmadi family's white Toyota as an ISIS target. The Pentagon has promised to pay compensation and to help relocate surviving family members. Ahmadi said the family has not heard anything directly from the U.S. government or military. A man was arrested by provincial police in the Canadian province of Quebec on Monday after someone left an animal carcass outside a mosque over the weekend. The carcass was discovered Saturday morning outside the Centre Culturel Islamique de Vaudreuil-Soulanges, located in a suburb of the city of Montreal. A police spokesperson said the 33-year-old man met with investigators Monday afternoon. He was released after agreeing to follow a set of conditions, including that he report to court at a future date if charged. The building was an abandoned restaurant and bar until the mosque took it over recently. On Monday, China's ambassador to Afghanistan, Wang Yu, took part in a ceremony with Taliban officials in the capital, Kabul. They were inaugurating China-funded projects to build a mosque and 2 wells for the Taliban's Ministry of Justice. Wang said the countries were close neighbors, connected by mountains and rivers, and the two peoples enjoy long-lasting friendly exchanges, the Xinhua news agency reported. Wang added that China sincerely hopes for and promotes an early realization of peace, tranquility, prosperity, and good neighborliness in Afghanistan. China and Afghanistan have long built friendships and partnerships supporting one another. Zabihullah Mujahid, chief spokesman of the Taliban-led administration, thanked China for sending aid. Mujahid added the administration will provide security for Chinese diplomats and investors. Dozens of illegal Jewish settlers attacked Al-Aqsa Mosque on Tuesday in the latest hostile action against Palestinians. The settlers were supported by the Israeli military, Al-Yom newspaper reported. Former Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Ikramah Saeed Sabri, had warned about how dangerous the Israeli government's actions and plans are. Israel has intensified plans to Judaize Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa Mosque, as well as eliminate its Islamic character. Turkish anti-smuggling police on Monday seized a gold coin and a gold-plated chest thought to belong to King Solomon. During a search of a suspect's vehicle, who was taken into custody, the gold-plated Ark of the Covenant and the gold coin were found. After an examination, experts from the Qora Museum in the city of Qom said the chest and coin are the remnants of the 11 artifacts found in Amasya province a few years ago. French officers handed over the keys to a military base in the Malian city of Timbuktu Tuesday after a nearly 9-year deployment. The ceremony took place near the city's airport with Malian army officers, officials from the local government, and the United Nations attending. The French flag was lowered and the Malian flag raised in its place on the base. About 150 soldiers remained after Paris began withdrawing troops, having fought extremists in the city in 2013. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September.
I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table.
I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. Earlier tonight, we shared the story of House Democrats passing a bill to combat Islamophobia in support of Ilhan Omar. To discuss this in detail, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Samana. Late last night, Congress House of Representatives voted to pass a bill written by Ilhan Omar and Jen Schakowsky from Chicago, a Muslim and a Jewish person, to fight Islamophobia by having a special envoy in the State Department. Ilhan Omar says that it is modeled after the similar bill about anti-Semitism. But there was a drama. House proceedings were stopped for 1 hour because one Republican congressperson from Pennsylvania, Scott Perry, he repeated the same thing and providing evidence of Islamophobia. He said that Ilhan Omar is anti-Semite and she is connected with terrorists. So ethical committee went into work and they declared that is not acceptable and it was deleted. That wasted 1 hour. But it was voted upon. Democrats and Republican divided, bill pass, it will go to Senate. We don't know whether it will be passed or not. But Ilhan Omar has done an amazing thing, translating anger on Representative Ober's comments about her being a terrorist into an energy to make some institutional change, which is good for America. To discuss all of that with us is someone who discusses Islamophobia and what goes on behind that name, Sahar Aziz. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sahar Aziz is a professor at Rutgers Law School and author of a new book, The Racial Muslim, When Racism Quashes Religious Freedom. She also directs the Rutgers Center for Security, Race, and Rights. Well, tell us why Ilhan Omar is such a easy target for them.
Representative Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Andre Carson, and the former Representative Keith Ellison are really the trailblazers in terms of being the first Muslims to be elected to Congress. And if you look back at American history, you will find that the same types of overt and shameless discrimination and bigotry occurred against Jews and against Catholics and against Mormons in the early 20th century. And in fact, that's what my book, The Racial Muslim, When Racism Quashes Religious Freedom, goes into detail about, to show that Muslims, unfortunately, are the latest targets of a long history of the racialization of religious groups in a way that creates discrimination or bias, anti-Semitism, anti-Catholicism, and today Islamophobia. And so what we need to understand is that first, it's absolutely unacceptable for us to continue to repeat this history of contradictions and hypocrisy against our own religious freedoms by openly attacking Representative Ilhan Omar and other Muslim U.S. congressional leaders, because this is a very typical trope that is used against Muslims, that they're terrorists, that they support terrorism. We have a lecture series at the Center for Security, Race, and Rights literally called Desecuritizing Muslim Identity because of this problem, this terrorist trope that's leveled not only at the average Muslim at school, at work, in public, but even an elected official. So even the privilege of being in the U.S. Congress is not granted to a Muslim American like Ilhan Omar by her own colleagues.
Now, is there any evidence in the past congresspersons attacking others in this particular way? While the debate was going on about this particular bill against Islamophobia, Congressperson Scott Perry went ahead and called her anti-Semite and, terrorist sympathizer or terrorist affiliation. Is this something which continue to happen in the Congress, or how do people settle that? In the past, I guess they will have a duel to settle it. But is this, something unique?
Unfortunately, what people like Representative Perry do is they embolden people who tend to adhere to white supremacy to be both anti-Semitic and Islamophobic, because it divides these communities. It's very divisive rhetoric, as if there's some kind of oppression Olympics, that if you combat Islamophobia, then you don't care about anti-Semitism, which is absolutely false, both for Representative Ilhan Omar, but also for the millions of Muslims in America who are actively engaged in combating discrimination against all minority groups, including Jewish Americans. And so this is not surprising, because what it shows is that just like when Trump ran his presidential campaign and all of the other Republican candidates ran their presidential campaign on an Islamophobic platform, meaning that Islamophobia earns votes, it sells ads, it gets you elected. That's really the fundamental problem. It's not that Representative Perry said that. It's that he could say it and not worry about not being reelected, not worry that this was as offensive as anti-Black racist slurs, as anti-Semitic racist slurs. And that's the contradiction that I think is the most clear and persuasive evidence that this country has a serious problem with Islamophobia being acceptable and being seen as not part of the broader anti-racism systemic movement.
One objection which Republican representative brought up in the House debate is that it does not define Islamophobia. Does Islamophobia still faces the struggle to define itself?
I think this focus on not defining Islamophobia is a red herring and a distraction. Because whether we use the term Islamophobia or we use the term anti-Muslim racism, which I go into detail about what those definitions are in my book, The Racial Muslim, When Racism Quashes Religious Freedom, the most important point is that human beings who deserve to be treated with respect and dignity and equality are being abused. They're being mistreated. They're being treated as second-class citizens by their neighbors, by their teachers, by their co-workers, and most importantly by the state, which has the power to take away your liberty and the power to deny you citizenship rights and naturalization to citizenship and visas and so on. And so I think what we need to focus on is combating that phenomena, which is systemic and which, based on Representative Perry's comments, show that it's acceptable. And that's not the country that we want to be. It's also not the country that we teach our children, that this is the country where you have religious freedom and being a Muslim does not criminalize you and does not make you suspect of supporting terrorism.
Well, Professor Aziz, what is racial Muslim?
Yes, so my book, The Racial Muslim, effectively explains how religious identity, specifically Muslim identity, has been racialized to impute upon Muslims these inferior biological traits, in the same way that phenotype, which is your skin color, your hair texture, the width of your nose, and the fullness of your lips. So usually we think of race as how you look, right? The social construction of race based on how you look. But in fact, if you look back at history, and again, I look at Jews, Catholics, and Mormons, and also Native Americans and also African Americans, 30% of whom were Muslim when they were forcibly brought as enslaved Africans, right, in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. But it's their religious identity imputed upon them their inferiority. So by being a Muslim, by believing in Islam, then these Islamophobes then treat you as if you are somehow inferior biologically. It's not simply that you're going to go to hell or you're committing a sin or you won't be saved. It's even more than that. It's that it justifies that you should be imprisoned, you should be tortured, you should be put in Guantanamo Bay, you should be excluded as part of the Muslim ban. That's the racialization process, and it's important because it directly contradicts the religious freedom principles of this country that are enmeshed in the First Amendment, in the many of our statutes, and is taught to our school children. So if we're going to be serious about religious freedom and believe that that is a fundamental value of this country, then everyone deserves to experience religious freedom at its fullest, including Muslims in America.
Thank you so much, Seher Aziz. Seher Aziz is professor at Rutgers Law School and author of a recent book, The Racial Muslim, When Racism Quashes Religious Freedom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Back to you, Samana.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.